He called unto them all and said, Go now and come near, that I may pour out my spirit on you. 1 Kings 18 verse 39. What happens when faith collides with fanaticism? The story of Elijah unfolds in a time of religious turmoil, amidst the worship of Baal and the straying hearts of the Israelites. A fiery prophet emerges, challenging the traditions and calling for a return to the one true God. Ahab, king of Israel, had a wicked heart, ruled by greed and idolatry. His wife, Jezebel, worshipped Baal, a false god, actively promoting his worship throughout the land. This blatant disregard for Yahweh, the true God of Israel, angered him deeply. Amidst this spiritual darkness, Elijah, a prophet of Yahweh, rose to challenge Ahab's reign. He boldly confronted the king and declared that because of his wickedness and Jezebel's idolatry, Israel would face a severe drought. His words were not mere pronouncements. They were direct messages from God, carrying with them the weight of divine judgment. The land was parched, rain ceased to fall, leaving fields barren and crops withered. Ahab and his people suffered greatly. The drought lasted for 3 long years, stretching across the land like a blanket of despair. Elijah's prediction proved true, a stark reminder that even the mightiest earthly power bows before the will of God. This drought was more than just a natural disaster. It was a consequence of Israel's spiritual decline, a tangible manifestation of God's displeasure with their actions. The drought became a constant shadow over Ahab's reign, a living testament to the prophet's unwavering words and the power of Yahweh's judgment. This hardship served as a poignant reminder for the people of Israel that obedience to God was not merely a suggestion but a necessity for their well-being and prosperity. The land itself bore witness to the consequences of turning away from the Lord. Ahab ascended to the throne of Israel with a heart that was far from Yahweh's. His reign became synonymous with wickedness, marked by the influence of his wife, Jezebel, a woman who fiercely promoted Baal worship. Driven by her devotion to this false god, Jezebel instigated widespread idolatry throughout the land, actively seeking to eradicate Yahweh's presence in Israel. She persecuted prophets who remained faithful to Yahweh, even orchestrating their deaths. This unholy alliance between Ahab and Jezebel cast a dark shadow over the nation. They disregarded God's laws, embraced pagan practices, and built altars dedicated to Baal. Their actions were not mere transgressions against religious norms. They represented a fundamental rejection of Yahweh's authority and a blatant defiance of his covenant with Israel. Their reign became a testament to the destructive power of unchecked ambition and idolatry. Ahab and Jezebel's choices had profound consequences, setting in motion events that would forever alter the course of Israel's history. Their legacy served as a stark warning against straying from Yahweh's path, reminding future generations of the perilous consequences of abandoning faith and embracing evil. Ahab's reign had descended into a chasm of spiritual depravity, fueled by Jezebel's relentless pursuit of Baal worship. Prophets who clung to Yahweh were hunted and silenced. It was amidst this bleak landscape that Elijah, a fiery prophet of God, emerged. He stood as a solitary beacon of truth, challenging Ahab's idolatry with unwavering conviction. Elijah boldly proclaimed the consequences of their actions, declaring, "You have rebelled against the Lord, because you serve Baal." 1 Kings 18 verse 18. He challenged Ahab to a contest on Mount Carmel, pitting Yahweh's power against the supposed might of Baal. The showdown was dramatic and undeniable. Elijah's prayer brought down fire from heaven, consuming the sacrifice and demonstrating Yahweh's supremacy. Yet, despite this miraculous display, Ahab remained unmoved. Jezebel, consumed by rage, threatened Elijah's life, forcing him to flee into the wilderness seeking refuge. The tension on Mount Carmel was palpable. Elijah, a lone figure amidst throngs of Baal worshippers, had challenged their false gods to a contest of power. He declared, "Show me your works." 1 Kings 18 verse 36. The prophets of Baal, consumed by fanaticism, danced and chanted for hours, attempting to summon their god through elaborate rituals. But silence remained their only response. The Israelites, gathered as witnesses, watched with bated breath. Elijah, with quiet resolve, prepared Yahweh's altar. He prayed a simple yet powerful prayer. "Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. and that it is by your word that I have done all these things. 1 Kings 18 verse 36 to 37. Then, a dramatic display unfolded. Fire descended from heaven, consuming the sacrifice on Elijah's altar, a visible testament to Yahweh's power. The crowd was stunned into silence. The prophets of Baal, their false god exposed as powerless, were brutally slain by Elijah's followers. This victory marked a turning point in Israel's history, a reminder that true worship and obedience lay in serving the one true God. The fiery demonstration on Mount Carmel wasn't just a spectacle. It was a profound declaration of Yahweh's supremacy. Elijah, standing firm in his faith, had called for a test between the true God and the false gods worshipped by the Israelites. When the prophets of Baal failed to produce even a spark, their deception was laid bare. The silence that followed their desperate pleas underscored the emptiness of their idols. Elijah's altar, rebuilt with simplicity and purpose, became the stage for Yahweh's power to manifest. His prayer, a humble yet bold plea, pierced the heavens. Then, the heavens themselves responded, unleashing a fire that consumed the sacrifice, leaving no doubt about whose power reigns supreme. 1 Kings 18 verses 36 to 37. The Israelites, who had once wavered between devotion and idolatry, witnessed this undeniable display of divine authority. It was a moment of truth, a turning point in their history. The fire from heaven wasn't just an act of vengeance against the false prophets. It was a powerful testament to Yahweh's faithfulness and the ultimate triumph of truth over deception. The scene on Mount Carmel was charged with tension. The prophets of Baal had danced and chanted, offering sacrifices to their god, yet met with deafening silence. Elijah, his voice steady amidst the growing chaos, stood firm in his declaration that Yahweh alone was God. Then came the moment of reckoning, a test by fire. Elijah's prayer, a simple but powerful plea to Yahweh, was answered with a display of divine power unlike any witnessed before. A consuming fire descended from heaven, engulfing not only the sacrifice on Elijah's altar, but also the surrounding stones. This wasn't just a spectacle. It was a stark demonstration of Yahweh's absolute dominion and his abhorrence for idolatry. 1 Kings 18 verses 36 to 37. The power of this moment shattered the pretense of Baal's prophets, revealing their deception and leaving them exposed to the righteous judgment of Yahweh. The consequences were swift and severe. As if consumed by the same fire that had devoured the altar, the prophets of Baal were slain at Elijah's command. This wasn't an act of vengeance, but a demonstration of divine justice, a clear consequence for defying Yahweh and leading the people astray. This event served as a powerful reminder. Allegiance to false gods would not be tolerated, and Yahweh's power was unmatched. Jezebel, queen of Israel, was a woman consumed by fury and grief. Elijah's bold defiance had brought her Baal worship into disrepute, culminating in the slaughter of all his prophets at Mount Carmel. She saw him as the architect of her humiliation, a threat she couldn't abide. Her rage knew no bounds. She swore to avenge this public humiliation. The consequences for Elijah were swift and dire. He was forced to flee for his life, seeking refuge in the wilderness, haunted by the relentless pursuit of Jezebel. He yearned for oblivion, wishing he were dead rather than facing her wrath. 1 Kings 19 verses 2 to 4. She wasn't one to let matters rest. With threats and promises, she sought out loyal followers who would carry out her vengeful decree against the prophet who dared to defy her. Elijah's flight was a desperate scramble for survival. Jezebel's venomous threat hung over him like a storm cloud, pushing him into a state of utter fear and despair. The prophet who had boldly confronted kings and vanquished prophets on Mount Carmel now found himself running for his life, consumed by the overwhelming sense that death was closer than ever. He sought refuge in the wilderness, a desolate and barren landscape mirroring the desolation he felt within. His soul ached with grief. The weight of Jezebel's wrath, coupled with the realization of his own frailty, crushed him. In this moment of profound despair, Elijah wished for nothing more than to escape the torment that consumed him. "I have had enough," he cried out in anguish. "Take my life. I am no better than my fathers." 1 Kings 19 verse 4. His words echoed with the pain of a broken spirit. Stripped bare by his fear and abandonment, he sank to the ground, exhausted both physically and emotionally, yearning for oblivion. A gentle angel appeared beside Elijah, bringing a whisper of comfort amidst the prophet's despair. He touched Elijah's face with his wing, conveying an immense peace that calmed the storm raging within him. A voice as soft as the desert breeze spoke to Elijah, urging him to eat and drink. The prophet found himself surrounded by provisions. Bread baked fresh from the oven and a jug brimming with water, fueling his weary body and offering solace to his troubled soul. He ate and drank, feeling strength returning to his limbs, his spirit slowly rising from its depths of despair. He spent the night in a cave, finding shelter amidst the rocks. The solitude offered him a space to process his emotions, a sanctuary where he could grieve and seek comfort from the divine presence that surrounded him. God's compassion was evident in this act of sustenance, reminding Elijah that even in his darkest hour, he was not alone. He felt a profound sense of love and acceptance wash over him, erasing the gnawing fear and doubt that had consumed him. The next morning, as he emerged from the cave, he felt a newfound purpose stir within him. God's presence had renewed his strength, ignited a spark of hope amidst the ashes of despair. He understood that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges, God's unwavering love and support would guide him. Elijah's mantle fell upon Elisha, a symbolic passing of the torch from one generation of prophets to the next. This wasn't just about teaching new techniques or sharing scrolls. It was about carrying on the legacy of unwavering faith and courage. Elisha, young yet driven, learned at Elijah's feet, soaking in the wisdom and experience of his mentor. He witnessed firsthand the power of God working through Elijah, the miracles, the confrontations with kings, the unwavering commitment to truth even in the face of danger. The mantle carried not just knowledge but also responsibility. Elisha stepped into a world where faith was tested, where injustice needed confronting, and where people yearned for guidance. He embraced this calling with fervor, demonstrating a deep understanding that his role extended beyond mere pronouncements. He was to be a voice of comfort, a beacon of hope, and a relentless advocate for the oppressed. His actions spoke louder than words, mirroring Elijah's unwavering spirit.